episode 3, which is my live stream slash podcasty thing where I answer viewer questions. And when there's no viewer questions, just find some questions on Reddit and we answer those instead. So, I know we have a question on here from a viewer. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so this is from a viewer on one of my other YouTube channels. I posted out there looking for questions. And if this is your first time watching, you got a question and you're watching the replay, which you probably are because these don't get any views yet, you just drop it in the comments and I'll answer it next week. I'm trying to do them on Sundays. We'll see how it goes. I might play around with the day, see what works best. But with 69 subscribers, I'm not really expecting the live stream to get many views. So if you want to drop a question, be happy to answer it. Anyway, so first question is from love.angel.musiclady. I'm assuming you're a lady, so we're going to use she pronouns. What do you think about driverless cars actually out on the road these days? I'm personally scared of them because I've seen so many program glitches in my life, but I also think some drivers are worse than ever. P.S. As this pertains to productivity, I'm guessing you could work while the car drives. What I think about wireless, so I've seen some cars that have like driver assist features where it like if you're in cruise control, it keeps a distance from the car in front of you, and if you get too close it hits the brakes for you, or next door lane, whatever you call that, lane over alerts. I think those are really good ideas. As far as like completely autonomous cars, I'm not totally sure about it, mostly because I feel like autonomous cars feel like they're being billed as a solution to a lot of problems of like, oh well, this, the car drives for you and there's fewer accidents, and you're like, okay, that might be true, but you know what else causes fewer accidents? If we have fewer cars. So people are also talking about like parking wouldn't be a big deal because the car would drop you off and then it would go park itself. But the car is still then driving. So like if the car drops you off at work and then goes all the way home, like the amount of resources it's burning and just the amount of resources spent on roads, I feel like is not a very productive or worthwhile system. So if we're talking about global productivity in the wider sense, you think like, well, a self-driving car means you could work in the car, but it's like, could you really work in the car? Like there's only so much you could actually do. Like, yes, you could do a lot from your phone, but you can be productive in a car. You can listen to books on tape. You can call people. It's probably not recommended, but books on tape is still productive. You can kind of learn another language with like audio type programs. There's a lot you could do in a car. But all that stuff you could do now in a bus. And so it's like if we got as a society, public transit was better, if urban sprawl wasn't so bad, I think I would rather live in a society where it's less important to own a car and your jobs, you walk to work, you live near work, the shop, the grocery store is, so think of, there's a couple of those. They're building out in Omaha here where I live. There's one out in Boys Town. It seems kind of promising, that kind of mixed development where the shops are on the bottom floor and then there's apartments above them. I think that's a good idea. The problem is like all those apartment buildings are crazy ugly because they're all real generic looking. So if they could like figure that part out and just kind of have the best of both worlds with like unique mixed development, mixed single family with multi-family units. So think like a bunch of row houses with some kind of unique apartments, some duplexes, all kind of in the same neighborhood as like a grocery store and an office park. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that's kind of my take on self-driving cars. I don't think they're there yet. But I will also add one other thing is when we start getting autonomous cars, the first thing that's going to happen is autonomous trucks. And I read a study somewhere or a poll or whatever you want to call it that said that truck driving is the most common job in America. So when we get autonomous trucks, you're going to see a huge upheaval in the labor force. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that. I'm sure that probably won't be a thing for 10 or 20 years at least. Like, assuming autonomous trucks were a thing today, they're on the road, they're legal, the truck could drive itself, they'd probably still have a driver in the cab for a number of years. But who knows, the way things are going. So, okay. So that's all our viewer questions. We got one this week, which is good. We had one last week, so staying consistent. Let's pull up some questions on Reddit and see, let's answer some questions. Here's one. Struggling to come up with video ideas. So I'm getting into videography with basic equipment, literally got into it a week ago. I'm going to Dubai alone and would like to make a short film about my adventures there. But I have it hammered to me that the most important thing in filmmaking is the story, which is what I'm struggling with. So here's my thoughts. 1, simple video showcasing the sights of Dubai with music in the background. No one's gonna watch that, that sounds boring as fuck. 2, vlog type of video where I talk to the camera. I mean, I guess you could do that, but you should focus more on like your experience, and it should be for posterity's sake, for your own kind of virtual diary, because no one really gives a shit. Video where I'm the model actor and it just follows my day without acknowledging the camera. I guess. Make up a story, which I'm finding hard for a travel video. I mean, you could do that. I've seen there was one YouTuber who had an idea. It was like the boring room challenge, and the idea was that you were supposed to make a short film by yourself in a boring room. And people made some interesting stuff. So like, that's totally feasible. I mean, there's like a lot of things you could do as a solo film / actor where you are filming yourself. One idea I always thought would be interesting would be as a person who is getting directions from an unseen voice. So maybe you are a secret agent, or maybe you are being blackmailed. There is an example of this. It's a Black Mirror episode. I think it's called Shut Up and Dance, where a young man is being blackmailed for a plot twist reason you don't find out about. And he's given all these instructions, and he's interacting with other people who were also given instructions, and together they do things. That's really all you need to know without spoilers. So you could do something like that. Could be an idea, but I think if you are just getting into videography, I don't see the problem with just going at it and practicing. You could do photos, you can think of like composition, you could just approach it like a filmmaker. And for that, there's like a filmmaking exercise called a 5x5, where you take 5 shots that are 5 seconds each, and that tells a story. And so you could do a bunch of those in Dubai, and you just think about like little filmmaking drills like that. Or you could go into it looking specifically for some type of pattern, or some type of geographic feature, some type of color, and just kind of training your eye to see good lighting or repetitious patterns that might make for good backgrounds. And you could do, street photography, although somebody in the comments does point out that apparently Dubai has some laws and cultural differences with maybe street photography might not be a good idea in Dubai. So that's those are my recommendations there. Breaking into real estate videography, need tips. Don't do it. My style, grandeur and full hard-hitting energy with an emphasis on feels. My experience, I have been doing wedding videography, small business, commercial work since 2008. Need some tips on today's market. Here's a modest sample of my work. I've since refined my style. I'm going to put my reel together. I would say right now, don't do it. Houses are selling for instantly. Every house that goes on the market sells in a weekend for way over asking price. You are just barking up the wrong tree. You can try to go after like the ultra big house. Like that's the only house I think is getting a video tour right now, is a house that costs like over $1 million. And even that will probably sell without too much problems. So I would say that, yeah, I think you're barking up the wrong tree right now. You could do it, but in my experience, most realtors are not interested in that because they want people to actually come see the house and they want to sell people in the house. They don't want people to get a good sense of the house. You want to get a rough idea, you want to get a little taste, but then they want you to come and then they can actually sell you on it. And they really can't do that with video. So I don't know how. I mean, that might be. There's plenty of people that do it for a living. And I'm sure there's real estate companies that have those people on retainer, but as a freelancer, I don't think you're going to get many clients. But if you are dead set on that, I would say network a bunch. And probably what would probably do better would be to find people with really nice houses that are like home and garden, parade of homes, that type of shit, and film their houses first. And that way it's less about like, this is a house for sale, and more like, this is what these people are doing with their houses, because I think that's maybe more of a general interest thing. And then you could put together a YouTube channel with that. And if the YouTube channel got big enough, you'd probably have people that actually wanted their houses filmed for your YouTube channel, and it would kind of take care of itself. And then you could get paid with ads. And then you're practicing, you're getting your reps in, you're getting some work in, you're getting a name in. And then you might have realtors who see that work and come contact you and are saying like, hey, this, what you're doing is great. I would also say another thing worth doing would be to look at local businesses that are in the areas of the type of houses you want to shoot, and do little interest pieces, and then talk to real estate agents about sponsoring the videos, because then it's kind of like, look what you could have if you live in this neighborhood, like look at this park, like look at these businesses, like little spotlights on stuff. That might be worth doing. Let's see, what else? Starting career. Hey guys, I'm starting out my career as a full-time filmmaker. Terrible idea. I just got hired at a production company in Brooklyn. I will be doing concerts. Oh fuck, that's terrible, bud, sorry. And they are supplying the equipment, which is a Sony a7 III. Since I cannot take it for outside work, that's weird, I'm thinking about buying my own setup. Since I won't always be doing concerts, I'm thinking a GH5, which is a budget-friendly with 2 good lenses and maybe an external recorder. Anyone have an opinion on a decent starter setup? Should I buy another a7 III? Also, can someone tell me what's a good way to recruit leads? Should I go to restaurants, gyms? How do you guys start to make money? There's a lot of questions right there. I would say if you're shooting with an a7 III for your job, you should get an a7 III, because that just makes sense. And that way it's the same camera. And there could be times where you bring your a7 III and you charge them a kit fee. And so you can make money right off the bat having the same camera. That makes a lot of sense. You'll get better at the camera for your job. You'll get better at the camera outside of your job. A GH5 is a good camera if you're just starting, but I would just stick with the same system. And that way you get to know it very well, and then just kind of stay with the Sonys. As long as you like it. If you don't like it at your job, then get a different camera. Go to the camera store, go to B&H if you're in New York, and play with some of them, talk to the B&H people. Because like Canons are very user-friendly, Sonys tend to have more features. GH5s are kind of like the best of both worlds, but they're also micro four thirds, which means the image might not be as amazing as it could be. But how do you get leads? Well, you work for a production company. So the big question is, does the production company allow you to go do your own thing? Some do, some don't. Especially if you're working full-time for them, or if you're only working part-time for them, they don't say. How would you go about doing it? Man, in Brooklyn, I would say your best bet is not to quit your day job in New York City unless you have money saved up, because that's a bit of a hard go if you live in a high cost of living area. But and this might be a tough ask if you're filming concerts, but would be to go try to find like a church Churches, especially these days, are filming, they're streaming, they're doing all that stuff. They need AV people, and because a church schedule is just nonstop, like the churn rate is pretty good. So they don't pay great, but it's consistent money you can count on like every week. You just have to get up on Sunday mornings. And so I've been working at a church for like the last 10 years, and it's been super chill. I've done some kind of freelance work for other churches, like with friends or for friends who couldn't do the job. And the church stuff, it's always super easy. It's always super chill. The people are always super nice. They pay on time. It's not always great pay, but it is pay. And so I think once you can start stacking, like you have this production company and now you'd have like a church job. So those two big things. The other thing I would recommend would be to diversify your skill set, especially in the beginning. If you're in New York, you could probably get gigs as a PA, like doing the bullshit trench work of like locking sets up, where when you lock a setup, basically that means you just tell people they can't walk through. And in New York City, I'm sure there's a lot of that where you stand on the street and tell people they can't drive or walk through until the production call's clear. So that would be something. And also just networking, going to film events, going to filmmaker meetups. I'm sure there's like a New York City Facebook group. There's probably a New York City film Reddit even. So that would be my advice. Just network. And I wouldn't try to go find your own clients right away. If you don't even know what camera you want to use, I think you're probably still a year off from that. I think it might be worthwhile to experiment with making your own thing. But until you have a camera, lights, audio, or can reliably source those three things, I wouldn't take money for videos. Just kind of my thought on that. Let's come up with another question. Best wearable camera for YouTube, GoPro. I'm looking for information on wearable cameras for YouTube recording. I'm looking for something that will record in good quality while walking around and it's relatively stable. If possible, I'm looking for something on the budget-friendly side, as this is kind of a trial thing and somewhat discreet. Not a big thing attached to my head. I would say, also he says, LOL, who is downvoting a post like that? Because there's really no other option. It's like, get a GoPro, strap it on your chest, and then wear a hoodie. Done. Is it the most budget friendly? Relatively speaking, a GoPro is like what, $300 to $500, and the strap is like $50. Like that's a pretty cheap setup as far as cameras go. And if it doesn't work out for you, then you can just sell it for, I don't know, $100 off and probably get most of your money back. So that's kind of the biz. You have to take some risks. Let's see. Let's find some more. Anybody else having trouble getting videos off your iPhone? I am getting into creating films with my iPhone XS, however, having a lot of trouble getting my videos off of my phone. I'm using iExplorer to bulk download the videos on my Windows machine, however, running into the following problems. Only about 70% of the files get downloaded. That's weird. The videos that do get downloaded running are choppy and been messing with it for a few days. If you're filming with an iPhone, there's an app called Filmic Pro, and I highly recommend that. If you get that and then you install iTunes on your machine, when you hook up the phone, it'll come up in iTunes, and then you could go phone, apps, Filmic Pro. It's like $20, but then under Filmic Pro, it'll have all your files. And so it's really easy to get your shit off of it. Let's find the next question. I really like when I have this light. A big monitor is like a softbox. Anyway, dance videographer beginning setup help. I just did some videography for some dancers. There's a local dance company called TBD Dance Collective. They're very lovely ladies and one gentleman. So let's see. Hi, I do not have much experience with dance videography or videography in general, but I would like to get into it in order to film stuff for the dance club I am part of at school. So mostly concept videos in low light, workshops, classes, and maybe some other miscellaneous dance photography. From talking to others, Seems that the Sony a7S III and a7 IV are recommended, but I'm having trouble deciding between the two, as my use case would be mostly a mix of videography and action photography, and some stills as well. Also, as a new, inexperienced, seems like this equipment might be a bit of overkill to me. I'm leaning to the S7 III, but it just seems like a lot. But that said, the budget is less of a concern, although I would prefer not to go over 5,000 USD for everything. If your budget is 5,000 USD, I would get a Canon R6 with the 24-70. Actually, I would get the Canon R6 with the 24-105 RF lens. I think that puts you at 3,500. Get a tripod with a decent fluid head. I know Small Rig just made one. I don't know if it's any good, but I do want to buy one. They're only $150. So you might be able to roll the dice on that. It might be usable depending on how much movement you're going to do. And then spend the other $1,500 on lighting equipment, like especially with $1,500, you can get a lot of, you can get either like some really big good lights, or you can get a lot of little lights that could be fun for dancing purposes. Like the Aperture MC lights, they're little credit card style lights. They're like $100 each. If you got a kit of like 4 of them, or even 8 of them would be even better. And you can dial them in with an app. You could kind of do some weird shit with color controls. You could also buy, I think Aperture has some tube lights now. With $1,500, you could probably buy like 3 or 4 of them. There's another company called Nanlite that makes tube lights that are pretty affordable. I think if you got, I think those would be kind of the way you'd want to go for dancing, just because then you could do some weird stuff with it, and then you could also keep them, the tube lights especially, you could keep them in the shot, and they kind of like add some mystique and some production value. So that would be the route I would go. And I would get the R6 specifically because I like it. I don't think, if you're a beginner, I think Canons are way more user-friendly for beginners. And I had an A7S II. The problem was there was like a lot of weird quirks with like the photo, video, like if something was in like a picture profile, you couldn't be shooting in the quiet shutter. So it was just like, so there were some weird quirks, but then also, I mean, people say like, oh, the megapixels don't matter, but like they do a little bit. And so I think you'll be happier with a Canon R camera. But yeah, that would be my take. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing you get though is the lighting. I think the lighting will be the difference between making kind of boring stuff and making exciting stuff. And then also I think regardless of what camera you get, with $5,000 you could probably get a used gimbal in there somewhere, like a Ronin S, which you probably get used for like $250, $300, probably less. And I think that will help you probably get more of what you're looking for, because you could be a little more kinetic with the camera, and that will translate to a more interesting video than just having it locked off with a panning tripod. So that's my take on that. Let's see. Oh no. Filming my first wedding with a 3-man crew. Good call. 2 of us have 0 wedding video experience. Need tips and advice. Oh shit, you're fucked. Not really. Just need as many tips as you guys can provide. The wedding is at the end of the month, so we have time to prepare. 2 of us have Sony cameras, and the third has a Blackmagic 6K Pro. We're recording audio from speeches straight from the microphone, XLR out. I wanted to film an S-Log, but that's just because I'm used to shooting cinematic videos in that color profile. That's not a color profile, bud. That's just not a color profile. I know that Blackmagic has different profiles, so don't know how to keep it consistent. Shoot in log or a flat, so that way you can grade it to however you want it. The wedding is going to be inside of an event hall. Just nervous since this is a big day and probably the most important thing I will shoot yet. After doing some research, seems I want to shoot an HLG3. It's a color profile, but still trying to figure out the best tuning for that profile. The 2 cameras are the A7 III and A6500. Well, there's 3 of you, so put the 6K in the back, shooting wide to make sure it gets the whole front. And then you take the other two cameras and you put them on the wings, shooting, one shoots the bride, one shoots the groom. And whatever you do not record the audio from the speeches straight from the microphone, XLR out. That's a terrible idea because you don't control it. Somebody who might be a volunteer who won't show up at all, or won't show up till 5 minutes before, you just have so little control. You can do that, but have a backup. And if nothing else, take your cell phone, put it in airplane mode, turn on the video, the voice memo thing, and stick it in the groom's front pocket. And then you'll have that audio, which is better than nothing, but it will save your ass. If something goes wrong with the microphone, if there's so much that could go wrong there that, like, I mean, you said event hall, but like, you know, I've worked so many of those weddings where like the AV person is just like overworked or like just undertrained, like barely knows how to turn the system on. And then when you're like, I need to plug in, and they're like, what is that? Who are you? We can't do that. And you're just like, okay. And then you're like, you know, and what they send you is just hot garbage. It's not mixed right. And they don't want to touch the board because, you know, oh, Sunday's church. So have your own system. That's the number one thing you could do. If you get good, clean audio, you can kind of get away with fucking up a lot everywhere else. So good, clean audio, shoot way more B-roll than you think you need. And yeah, have your safest camera, which is probably the Blackmagic 6K, in the back shooting wide. And if you can get another camera that's in the back shooting tight, that's even better. And then you get the cross. That's 4 shots. You should be fine. That's my take. Let's see. Let's get some other questions in. We're about a half hour in. I don't know how long I want to keep it. I feel like a half hour is a good amount of time. But maybe it's a number of questions. Let's see. There's a lot of, on this Reddit post, there's a lot of recommendations for cameras. Guide to start. Let's see what this question is. Hi, I'm looking for some advice on how to start. I mean, in which order should I start learning? Production, lighting, writing, editing, or in which order do you think it would be the way that I need to learn? What do you want to do? Where do you want to end up? Like, what are you trying to do? Get a camera, shoot stuff. That's it. And then from there, there's so much, you know, you can work with other people. It's a good way to learn. Offer volunteers. Offer to volunteer, helping people out. Offer to make videos for nonprofits you like. Because, like, I guarantee you there's a nonprofit in your town that does very cool things that doesn't have, like, any marketing material, any videos, and they would fucking love it if you would go help them and make them a video. And I'll tell you this, you know, a lot of people are like, you know, if you're good at something, don't do it for free. Like, brr. Okay, well, you're just starting, so fuck you. No one knows who you are. You haven't done shit, so you probably should have something. But also, think about who volunteers at nonprofits. Like, they tend to be people who are later in life, who have kind of done everything, and those people are connected. And you know what they like? They like connecting people who give a shit about the same shit they care about. So by working for nonprofits that these important people care about for free, doing good work, and if you produce good work, which you will, because you're going to, you know, do some research, you're going to watch some YouTube videos, you're going to do some test runs, and then you're going to make something that's good. Those people will be like, oh, you should meet my friend Jeff. He does XYZ, and they'll put you together, and there you go. You're off to the races. You know, I've gotten a number of jobs where it started, where I work with marketing companies, and the nonprofit is like, hey, you know, like, we'd really like to do this. And they're like, we don't really have a budget, but you can talk to some of our vendors. And then they'll call me, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. And then I'll meet some super rich person, and they're like, oh, that was great work you did. Like, why don't you come help us with this other thing that I'm the chair of? Because maybe that's just like an Omaha thing, but people in nonprofits tend to be networked in like several. So that would be my recommendation for getting started there. And you know what? Even if that doesn't happen, well, you did some good in the world, so you can sleep good at night that you made a nice video for a nonprofit to help them raise some money. Let's see. How hard do I have to sell my business? What does that mean? I just started my videography business, offering all sorts of services such as camera for hire, weddings, and also headshots. This morning, I messaged a real estate business near me and offered my video services. They post videos about new houses and the quality isn't great. There's a reason for that. I sent them my website and they said they'd check it out, of course. Do I have to push to sell these services, or will people who want them be interested? I know nothing sells itself. I've never been much of a sales pusher, so wondering what I should do. What you should do, Nicholas Obradovich, looking fine. You're looking fine, Nick. For me, and maybe I've just kind of lucked out, is that I've never really had to push much. I think the big trick that you want to do is you want to show your work, you want to do work, and then show the work. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. And, a lot of people don't like it when I say, like, you should do some work for free. Like, well, you should do some work for free. Like, if they make... first of all, a real estate business is a bad business to go after because houses sell themselves right now. They don't really need quality videos. So they're probably not going to pay you much, if anything, for them. There might be some real estate companies that do. But what I would say is go to the real estate. If you really want to make real estate videos, say like, hey, I will go film one house for you for free. And if it's good, then great. Maybe we can do some business. And if it sucks, like whatever, regardless, you'll have something for your portfolio. If you're just getting started, that's the way to go. Same with headshots. If you don't know, if you don't really have a portfolio, there's actors, there's musicians, there's all kinds of like college grads. They all need headshots for their LinkedIn. Bang out like 10 sessions for free. It takes 15-20 minutes to do a headshot session. Like, you don't have to overthink it. It's a 1-2 looks, somewhere nice. Do them for your friends. Just knock out a bunch, have a portfolio, have work done, and then start sharing that stuff. That's what I would do. As far as weddings, I think your best route with weddings is to become a second shooter for other people, because that's something you don't really want to get into without experience, because weddings are kind of a clusterfuck. Like, it's every type of photography all at once in a marathon session. Like, it's a long day where you're doing everything. Like, you're doing details, you're doing fashion, you're doing portraits, you're doing group shots, you're doing candid photos. And Nicholas Obradovich agrees, weddings suck. They're not a lot of fun. You can make a lot of money doing them, but they will grind you down. Like, by the time you're doing enough to make a living, when you're doing like 20 a year, 30 a year, like it fucking eats you up. Like, weddings are hard. Yeah. And Nick commented, why didn't you get a pic of my second cousin's husband crying? Like, it's always like, you always missed something. So I don't think, my advice to people is like, weddings probably isn't where you want to get started. Let's find some more questions. Advice on how to build a portfolio, where to start. Just looking for advice on where to start. DOP, fresh out of film school, just finished building my pretty professional and versatile rig I'm happy with. Okay, wait a second. You just graduated film school, and the thing you're proud of is your rig? Like, they didn't get you anything portfolio worthy? Not looking to make money at the moment. What the fuck? Are you a trust fund kid? Just wondering how to make a good portfolio. I do have friends from film school who all went to get together and shoot stuff, but directors always seem to talk a lot about their plans and produce little. Yes, that's at least the ones I know. No, that's all of them. Like, if you go to filmmaker meetups and stuff, people have all these plans, and the amount of people actually working on them is very small. The problem is, I think, is that everybody is just a little too ambitious with their film ideas. They want to make a feature, they want to make a web series, they want to just go out and make a big thing, but it's like, oh, we don't have the money for it. Like, well, yeah, no shit, because you haven't done anything. No one's going to give you any fucking money. Like, if you haven't made anything or you've only made crap because you made way too big crap, like if you took a big shit, no one cares. But if you make like one small little thing, people might be like, hey, I like that. I would like more of it. So think of it that way. More people need to be making short films. They need to be making like even TikToks, like think about like what a cinematic TikTok, a 10, 30-second thing would look like. Because people aren't doing that. They're not getting their reps in. And then they go try to make like a 20-episode web series where they're not paying anybody. So their fucking actors drop out halfway through. And then they're just like, filmmaking's too hard. It's like, no, it's because you're going about it wrong. I feel like this, I don't know what puts that idea in your head that if like you're not making a feature film, it's not valid. Like short films are valid and they're good and sometimes they're better. Get my stuff together so I can go to my parents. Let's finish this question and then we'll head out. At least the ones I know. I've been offered a couple of jobs by contacts, but was busy at the time and nothing's coming out from thin air like then right now. LOL. This isn't a personal ad. I'm not US based, so not looking to collaborate. Just someone point me in the right direction on how to get started. Figure out what you want to do. Gotta go. Bye. You're great. Nick, you're great. I love you. If you're just getting started, the question is like, obviously you need money. Favorite YouTuber by far. Thanks, buddy. My favorite YouTuber in the filmmaking space, D. Fratarius. Go look him up. Anyway, so if you're just getting started and you're coming out of film school, you don't have a portfolio. I mean, what the fuck did you do in film school is my first question. Do you have photographs of that stuff? Do you have stills from those projects? Do you have video? Do you have a sizzle reel? Do you have any of that stuff you can kind of put together a cheap, easy website? There's a bunch of those, pre-builder websites. They're like $20 a month. Pick one and just go for it. Or you can learn how to actually code a website, which is something I kind of did. I had my friend Caitlin. I exchanged headshots, and she designed my website, and I just was like, just make it real simple so it's just work. Like, that's all it is. It's just WordPress. She designed it in like 10 minutes, and I was like, thanks. She's like, this is all you want? I was like, yep. So my website is really basic. But here's the catch, is that I have not updated my website in 2 years, and I'm still fully booked more than I can work sometimes. So website is not the be-all, end-all. Your contacts are way more important. Anyway, that said, I would say figure out what you want to do. It seems like you want to do films, which that's a tough road to go. And the answer there is you're going to have to move to where they make films. That's really the only answer. I've seen some people that are like Nebraska based who make a living doing films, and they make like weird B horror movies, and apparently there's like a market for that. But they make a lot of films. Like this one guy made like 100-some films, and I'm like, fuck, that seems awful. So that said, I would look to hook up with local marketing companies, local production companies, see if they need hands on set, see if they need a camera operator, see if they need a PA, talk to nonprofits, offer to make them videos, diversify your skill sets. If you're just a DP, I'm sorry to say this, like if you're only a DP, you're worthless. Like if you want to make a living at this and your only skill is to be a DP, it's gonna be just an absolute slog for you. Because it's gonna take so long to get there. You need to diversify your skill sets. You need to be getting into photography. You should know how to edit at bare minimum. And you should kind of know the basics of how sound works and the basics of how lighting work. Like you should be fairly well rounded. And that's because if you want to be a DP at scale anyway, you're going to have to know a lot about lighting, and you're going to have to know at least a little bit about audio and at least a little bit about editing so you can know kind of how to shoot. So that would be my advice, is to learn those complementary skills, get a job that either is kind of directly into filmmaking but isn't exactly where you want it to be. Maybe you're working with a wedding videographer and you're the second shooter or the assistant editor or something, and you're just kind of in the biz. and then work on your side projects on the side. Maybe start a YouTube channel, something like that, and then you can play with cameras and maybe get paid to do it if you get enough subscribers. But other than that, it's like just make the smallest thing you can make. If it's a 1 minute thing with some friends, I mean, if you just graduated school, you should have some friends that are like willing to hang out. The trick is, if you want actors and you want them not to flake on you, they're gonna have to know kind of what they're getting into. They're gonna have to know the time commitment, and you're gonna have to stick to it. And then also you're going to have to finish the thing, because that's the biggest thing. If you take someone's afternoon and then you decide like, it's a piece of shit, like I don't want anyone to see it, you're gonna have a hard time getting people to come back. You want it to be a good, fun, pleasant experience. Or flip side, you pay them. And then once you make a handful of micro shorts, then you start to make a slightly longer film, and then it's something maybe you're proud of that's 5 to 10 minutes. And the reason why it's 5 to 10 minutes is because when you submit to film festivals nonstop get features and 45-minute shorts that are just dog shit, right? So those getting thrown out. Then they're getting stuff that's pretty good. The problem is film festivals want to program a lot of stuff. So if your thing is 5 minutes to 10 minutes, it's a lot easier to stick into the programming. And they like having those shorter pieces as palate cleansers between the big ones. So if you make a 5-minute short, you can get into more film festivals. Then you start to get some notoriety, or at least some validity, because you could say like, oh, we've been in this many film festivals, we've probably won 1 or 2 awards, and then it starts to become easier to get actors into your thing. You build a name for yourself, maybe you start to get an audience, and then you could start asking for money, and then you could do your bigger, longer thing. So that'd be my advice. If you want to get into film, if you want to get into other things, there's like a million ways that path could go. That's why there's no one comprehensive way to start, because everybody's path is just a little different. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you for those of you who are watching this in the future. If you've got a question, drop it down below. I'm going to try to do these Sundays for now, I think. Sometime in the afternoon, early evening. I'll do these Sunday office hours if you want to join and ask questions. Or if you just want to drop your questions below, or send them to me in an email, or tweet them at me, whatever. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.